In Rotherham, the Labour councillor, Jaglia, I think he was the uncle of Sammy Woodhouse's main rapist, who got the biggest sentence in the country. He used to, so when the girls were missing for 3 days, the Labour councillor would facilitate returning the children. The police wouldn't go and arrest them. The police would meet with him and he'd get the kids back after 3 or 4 days and give them back. It's like, what is going on? But people need to understand, which I don't think they understand, the true scale of this problem and the true scale of the cover-up. For example, Manchester, there was a young girl, was it Victoria? So you have to, excuse me, she was 15 years old, injected with heroin. They used to let the Pakistani Muslim man, I think he was about 60 years old, come into the children's home. So he was in there. She got injected with heroin, she died. The police launched an investigation at that point. Massive investigation. This is going back years before it's all out there. Yeah? They identified 100 men. They arrested them. The court case is ready to go to court. The CPS collapsed the whole case. Just got rid of it. The police officer in charge of collapsing it won the highest award from our royal family about 6 months later. Everyone who covered this up was rewarded. And this isn't just, we're not talking about one city here. We're talking about every single city, a mass conspiracy, a coordinated attack, a coordinated effort to silence, to keep this underground and keep it hidden. And when you think about it, Andrew, when you say it out loud, 5 kids were murdered in Telford. 5 are dead. And there was no mass scandal. Yeah, that's just in Telford. Just in a small town of Telford. Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. In Telford, the police identified 1,000 victims and they identified 200 rapes in Telford. Yeah, I focused on Telford. I've done a 5-part documentary series called The Rape of Britain. I went to Telford, I sat down with survivors and I spent 12 to 18 months knowing their lives inside out, like a police-style investigation. I sat the girl down for 3 hours, 4 hours, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And then we'd go back and we'd take what they've said, we'd put it into transcripts and we'd build a database. That's what we done, yeah? And just remember, there's 1,000 victims. Out of probably 16 or 18 girls, I got 264 names of rapists. The police identified 200. I got 264. The independent inquiry, which wasn't statutory powered, the independent inquiry that went on in Telford identified 300. Now, if you take the Muslim population, this is where anyone listening to this, if you want to understand how the scale of this problem, yeah, there's about 3,500 Muslims in Telford. Get rid of the women. Get rid of the under 16s, get rid of the over 60s or 70s, yeah? So let's get the men that fit into the criteria of being involved in the gangs. There's 1,000 men. Well, the police identified 200. That's 20%. We identified 264. The independent inquiry identified 300. Now, we identified 264. We only spoke to 18 girls. There's 1,000 girls. So how many men in that community were raping? How many? We know it's 20 to 30%. Just in that community, just in Telford. Look at Rotherham. Everyone's heard of Rotherham, yeah? Why have we heard of Rotherham and why have we heard of Telford? Well, Rotherham only has a 3.7% Muslim population. There's none there. What do you think it's like in Luton, where there's 50%? What do you think it's like in Oldham? And when we look at Oldham, do you know this whole scandal blew up? I'm going on a rant, but do you know this whole scandal blew up when I was in jail recently? And it blew up because Elon Musk shared, because the Labour government shut down the inquiry. Yeah. So people understand what happened in Oldham. Girls have been raped. All the families have come together and they begged the council for an inquiry. 5 times the Labour council shut down an inquiry. So what you realise is when there becomes such an Islamic domination in a town, there's no chance for inquiry. So they shut it down. Then independent councillors stood and there was a backlash because people were standing to get an inquiry. So then they have the local elections and people get in who have got in off the ticket of having an inquiry. So then now we've got Oldham Council going to the Labour government saying, right, we want an inquiry. And then Jess Phillips shuts it down again.
Did you see me on LBC the other day?
No.
I was on, and it was the strangest thing. There's like callers call in with questions, and then we've all got to answer them. You know, there's other and it was what question about the grooming gangs, and everyone said there like, oh, what the police did was wrong because they were equivocating. You know, these sort of lefties, they shouldn't equivocate on that. It's so important, and blah blah blah. But let's remember that Andrew Tate's blah, 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 and the far right. And I said, you've just done exactly what you said everyone else is doing. It's like a psychological illness almost.
Again, it is. And do you know Raj Mir? Have you had him on?
Yeah.
You had him on?
Yeah.
I think he's one of the most fearless men in Britain.
Oldham.
If you look, I know what it's like to talk about these issues, yeah?
Yeah.
For me, in Luton, I know what the gangs are like. I know how prominent they are. I know how it's a Pakistani mafia. Yeah? It's a mafia. They go all the way to the top. The level of violence they're willing to use, the targeting, the harassment. So the same with Sammy Woodhouse. When I look at her and I think, Jesus,
tell us about
Sammy was a survivor out of Rotherham who come and challenged the gangs, who was the lead person who, along with Andrew Norfolk, I think he was a coward because he knew what was going on. Andrew Norfolk's won all the awards for this, yeah? He knew what was going on. His own words. He knew what was going on for years, but it was too much of a tinderbox for the far right, yeah? So say that out loud. Andrew Norfolk let kids get raped because he was too... Well, that's what...
Yeah, I know, but...
He didn't report it.
I've told that's Tommy's opinion.
No, his opinion. It's his own opinion. I'll show you the recording of him saying it. What he says is, he goes, look, I'd known for years that these gangs were active and I knew they were targeting young white girls. He goes, but I was too scared to talk about it, yeah? You coward. You coward, yeah?
Just got to be careful, Tommy, because I don't want you going back to prison.
No, that's it. Well, the truth's the truth. If it lands you in jail, it lands you in jail. But Andrew Norfolk, do you know when he says he dealt with it? When he saw the emergence of the English Defence League. He goes, and I decided, like he's some morally high guy, I decided I needed to take it back from these far-right hooligans. I said, the problem is they weren't far-right hooligans, they're English men. And they're English men who have seen their daughters. Many of those people you're calling far-right hooligans were family members of those kids.
Yeah.
Who have been betrayed.
That's what people don't realise. I agree with you with that. 91% watching Heretics clips are not subscribed. Quick favour, hit subscribe. Free, takes 2 seconds, and helps us question everything together.